Now let's return to Syria. British Prime Minister David Cameron has been taking questions in Parliament, as we saw earlier, over his handling of the crisis in Syria. He told MPs that a solution must be found. The House of Commons voted against a motion to allow military strikes against Syria last week. Our UK correspondent Laurence Lee is with us from London. Give us a sense of today's debate, though.
Well, I think you have to place it, as you were saying, Shep, in the context of the humiliation for the Prime Minister, which was losing the debate and losing the vote over any military action. They can't have another vote. Britain can't take part in military action. Why? Well, because they've said the Parliament's decided, and it wouldn't be very democratic if they decided to have another vote just because they didn't like the vote in the first place. But if they lost a second vote, having lost the first one, then Cameron might have to resign because it would suggest he'd lost control of his own party. And so what he's trying to do, I think, now is to make it look as if he's still trying to push things forward, be in charge of affairs and not be sideswiped by them. And so what you saw there at Prime Minister's questions a few minutes ago was him repeatedly saying that Britain is a big aid donor, the second biggest aid donor in the world. The humanitarian crisis in Syria is very grave indeed, and that there must be a peace conference and there must be peace talks. So he's returning to the peace talks theme simply because he can't talk about military action. And there is this most bizarre situation now in Britain where the Labour Party, the opposition, which voted against military action, have said that they would only support military action if al-Qaeda-linked groups in Syria were found to have chemical weapons, which follows then that Britain would bomb the rebels, which puts them much more in the Russia/Assad government camp. And so it's a very peculiar situation that's emerged here. I think they feel very uncomfortable with it. And I think that Mr. Cameron, and indeed other countries like France, will probably have to start preparing the ground in the event of the American government losing the vote in Congress. Because if that happens, then they're all going to have to start saying to themselves, well, what exactly is the Western position now over Syria?
Just how politically damaged is Cameron now, though?
I'm sorry, say again?
Just how damaged is Cameron politically now?
Well, it was very embarrassing for him. One of the things that immediately they were very worried about was this so-called special relationship with the Americans, and had that been irreparably damaged, and John Kerry started saying that France had always been America's greatest ally, and they hate that sort of thing over here because they like being with the Americans. Since then, the Americans have softened very slightly and said that the British still are on their side. But the Whitehall, the Foreign Office, the Ministry of Defence, they want to be involved in things like this. That's the reason why they exist. But the trouble is, if parliaments like Congress in the United States are going to say, we're speaking for the people, then they've got to be prepared for the outcome. Now, and just as here, where the people clearly are against military action, if the American Congress is going to speak for the American people, then they would have to vote against military action too, because 6 or 7 out of 10 Americans are against it. And so they've got to find a way of making it look as if they're involved and engaged while still speaking for the people. And in the end, what you get then is Cameron talking about a peace conference instead.
Laurence Lee reporting. Thank you, Laurence.